Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu and Taoism. Lao Tzu, an older contemporary of Confucius, was keeper of the imperial chiefs at Luoyang in the province of Honan in the 6th century BC. All his life he thought that the Tao that can be told is not the internal Tao, but according to ancient legend, as he was riding off into the desert to die. Sick at heart at the ways of men, he was persuaded by a gatekeeper in northwestern China to write down his teaching for posterity. The essence of Taoism is contained in the 81 chapter of this book, roughly 5,000 words, which have for 2,500 years provided one of the major underlying influences in China thought and culture, emerging also in proverbs and folklore. Whereas Confucianism is concerned with day-to-day rules of conduct, Taoism is concerned with a more spiritual level of being. A modern way of the internal Tao. Tao means the way. The Tao is the way to live in order to achieve by non-doing. This is a dynamic peace and a mystery, neither passivity nor struggle. Tao is the ever-present eternal quality, source, law of creation, and fulfillment. In modern times, as more people of different cultures meet one another because of our electronic and air travel networks, the way can appear in many traditions and guises. The Taoist way is not dependent on race, creed, or any cultural form. It is very fluid and mainly demands an openness to truth, the nameless mystery. Taoism is associated with China, for Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu brought forth the ancient way through China 500 years before Christ. Their works are the cultural foundations of traditional Taoism. The basic tenets are four. 1. That the way of Tao underlies all things. 2nd. That human actions that is harmonious with Tao is spontaneous, effortless, and inexhaustible. 3. That the perfected individual is a sage, free from desire and strife. And 4th, that the sage conducts government by guiding his people back to the state of harmony with Tao. The mystery way of the Tao can never be explained or named, but we can live it. No matter what we think, say, or do, we are embraced by the way. For it has innumerable forms, and yet it always the same. It takes the form of mist and rain, underground wells and springs, rivulets and eddies, waterfalls and rivers, lakes and the great sea. The way is infinitely compassionate, supporting and nurturing even in our ignorance. But we cannot truly be wholly nourished until we forgive ourselves our mistakes along the way and thus cease blaming others for our wounds. The Chinese CHING says no blame. The Lord's Prayer says similarly, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. You may find other cultural manifestations of the way that inspire you, that bring forth your essence, that enable you to take harmonious actions with nature and spirit. For the Taoist, nature and spirit interpenetrate. In spirit there is nature, and in nature there is spirit. The Islamic, Judaic, and Christian traditions tend to emphasize a greater separation of spirit and nature than cultures that are closer to shamanism, the aboriginal root of religions. Cultures that have a closer connection with shamanism includes Taoism, Japanese Shinto, and Zen, Amerindian religions, and some forms of Tibetan Buddhism. With shamanic cultures, as with Taoism, spirit and nature, or God and creation, are inherently bound up with one another. The Kabbalistic, Sufi, and mystical traditions of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity also have aspects of the awareness of the interpenetrate of spirit and nature. The separation of spirit and nature is based on the subject-object split. The great divide in consciousness that says sense perceptions and logical thought are objective, whereas feeling and intuitive thoughts are subjective. In our scientifically oriented Western culture, objectivity is seen as the main criterion of truth, and subjectivity is considered personal and relative. But an insight, vision, or intuition may be more true than logic and description of objects. The test is the effectiveness of living the vision. Once we lose the way in this subject-object abyss, innumerable are the ills that grow out of it. The abuse of nature for technological exploitation, the resultant pollution, illnesses, and lack of wholesome food, water, and air for life are extreme signs of losing the way. God and the Word seem to be antithetical because humans create culture in ignorance of spiritual and natural laws. Then supreme effort is required to return us to the way. Being aware of our embodiment is the best opportunity to cultivate and refine ourselves to fulfill the purpose of reunion with the Tao. This reunion is not simply spacing out to some important realm, but grounding the way, right here and now on the earth and in our bodies. It necessitates awareness of the earth as a living being, not inert matter to be exploited. As traditions break down, we are forced to meet the way, which is both a mystery and a source for regenerative global culture. The essence of spiritual traditions can never be lost, for the way is perennial wisdom, eternal truth. There are innumerable teachings, doctrines, theologies, and practices of the world religions to bring us to the way, if we have lost it. In the modern world, we have the opportunity of distilling wisdom from these many traditions. We can meet the essentials and learn to resonate to spiritual dimensions that will inspire us to create holistic forms of education, ecological economies, visionary art, organic agriculture, and planetary governance. The Tao, the way, is the internal harmony of heaven, the human and earth in all times and places. It is ever renewed and yet inexhaustible. May you find your way which is one with the internal Tao.